As you guys know, AI is affecting every aspect of our world, and healthcare, I think, will have a huge transformation. Kind of the initial areas that we're seeing AI is really in radiology and diagnostics, and that's really because in radiology, you have hundreds of thousands of millions of these images that have been created over the years that are very highly annotated, which is an important aspect of it. So AI can take that and learn from it and really understand where certain correlations and it can start to see things that we cannot see with our human eyes, the radiologist cannot see.
I'm Sarah Nagle. I've spent my career leading research and product development within some of the world's largest brands.
And I'm Chad Reynolds. I'm a serial entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Verve.
And this is AI Powered by People.
Each episode will dive into the latest AI developments and talk to an industry leader to help you better understand and utilize AI.
We'll take you inside some of the world's most famous companies and share examples of how AI is improving innovation, consumer engagement, media, and marketing.
No matter what industry you work in, we'll help you navigate one of the biggest disruptions to organizations and people today.
Hey, Chad, how's it going?
I'm doing good. Spent the week in New York City for Ad Week.
Yeah?
So, yeah, it was a lot of people. A lot of people.
A lot of people, a lot of stuff, a lot of meetings?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know, like 6 floors of different talks, meetings, all different kinds of stuff around the ad industry and marketing and how they're using media to connect with consumers. And AI obviously came up, but, wasn't as much as I thought it would.
Yeah.
But
you brought it though, right?
I did.
You brought the AI?
I brought it. What's that? What's that movie?
What movie? Who's in it?
Like, Bring It
On?
Bring it. I'll bring it. Don't worry.
Bring It On, yeah.
Bring It On. Yeah.
Yeah, Bring It On.
You ripped off those cheers.
Listen, Missy, our cheers are 100% original. Count the trophies.
But wasn't there a sequel to it?
Oh, Bring It On 2, Bring It On 3. Like there's
already brought in something? Okay.
You better bring it.
Oh, it's already been brought in.
We want to cheer.
Who was in Bring It On?
Kristen Dunst.
Dunst.
Yeah. And Gabrielle Union.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Opposing Schools.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
I love that movie. Well, that's awesome. You had a great time in New York at Ad Week. We also have a big week this week. It's Blink.
Blink, the largest light and art event in North America.
Can you tell everybody about Blink? I've never experienced it before. This will be my first Blink.
Yeah, so Blink is I think like the largest art and music and projection festival in the country. So around 2 million people reportedly come into Cincinnati across 4 days, and it's a night festival. So and that's a really cool thing because like after the sun goes down, the city lights up. So all different kinds of projection mapping over, massive buildings throughout the city. The streets shut down, and you just have people walking through an entire city. And it just features a ton of amazing artists. And I think you're going to like it.
I'm excited. And we also, if you're in the Cincinnati area, come see us tonight at the American Sign Museum. We're hosting a Blink Creativity Summit with Agar. And Chad is going to be giving a keynote. It's going to be, he's going to be leading an interactive AI agent session. So kind of like the speakeasy, but like a mini speakeasy session. And he's going to be moderating a panel with Richard Whitehall, a partner at Smart Design, who's going to be on the podcast next week. We also have Amanda Bolton, who is a senior innovation designer at Procter & Gamble. And we have Matt Daler, who's a Blink featured artist and muralist. So it's going to be pretty fun. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have 4 different sessions that are taking place across almost 5 hours of programming we're putting together. It's this amazing opportunity to come together to talk about, not only art, which, this like Blink is known for, is just bringing kind of street art out to people. But we're also going to talk about what is that intersection between creativity, business, and technology. because AI has been a pretty hot topic, especially in the creative industries of, introducing new tools and ways of doing things. So it'd be interesting to get everybody's take on what's happened, what does it mean, and how do we move forward?
That'd be great. And then tonight we're also dropping our first ever event agent. So we're dropping a Blink agent. So Blink is an expert in the event, artists, the events throughout the time that folks are in Cincinnati, and it can speak to you as a guide to the event. So you can access it, but you have to come to the event tonight at the American Sign Museum to get access to it.
Ooh. Is it going to carry me from location to location?
Your little AI
my
agent
dogs
will
get
just
tired.
bring you. Chad, you're going this way. Yeah, totally.
It should.
So also head to verve.com/events to check out this event and more speakeasy tour events.
And I forgot, Sarah, we did a private speakeasy in New York with the Amex and Resi team. So
awesome.
Yeah, I can't share. I want to share because it was amazing people, amazing conversation, and really cool use cases for AI agents, both in the kind of internal and in the consumer world. But yeah, just highly encourage anybody listening, if you want to do a speakeasy inside of your company, what's private for your team, just reach out to Sarah and I. As we're traveling all over the place, we'd love to host those. So please reach out.
All right. So today we have an interview with Kate Marchio, who is a director of medical business development for a med tech company called Sagentia Innovation. She's an expert in product development, manufacturing, human-centered design, and how AI is impacting the med tech industry. So it'll be really interesting. We haven't had I don't think we've had anyone that's been kind of from this med world yet and talking about how AI is impacting the medical world. So that'll be great. All right, let's get to the headlines. OpenAI is in the news again.
This was a big day for OpenAI, the company officially closing one of the largest private funding rounds in Silicon Valley history. The total coming in at $6.6 billion. This was at a $157 billion post-money valuation. I'm told by a source it was led by Thrive. We had SoftBank and Microsoft doubling down, NVIDIA, and then UAE-backed fund MGX. Khosla Ventures also in, Altimeter Capital, and just confirmed that Cathie Wood's ARK Invest also was in this round. OpenAI says the cash is going to help them with AI research to increase compute capacity as well, and then build tools that, quote, help people solve hard problems. OpenAI is, of course, the maker of ChatGPT, which we did learn today now has 250 million weekly users. That has more than doubled from a year ago.
It's nearly double what the company was valued at earlier in 2024. Part of it has to do with how they plan to shift from to a for-profit structure. So that there's other changes that have happened, but that's a big deal. That's a lot of money.
It is, and it's going to take multiple years for them to become profitable, according to reports. So obviously, the AI is expensive if you're training models, and then I think with anything, just the expectations that access to a lot of these tools is kind of like $20 a month, and is that really sustainable based off what it actually costs to generate or compute and generate things off of that? So it'll be really, really interesting to see how that changes over the next few years, and then what funding is going to be used for. So launching new products and different services.
All right. Next up, 23andMe. Chad, I don't know if you have done the 23andMe kits or know anyone that has. Have you?
Guilty.
Okay. Well, they've had about a year, 12 months. They suffered a massive data hack that led to a $30 million class action lawsuit, where, people are getting access to, or hackers were getting access to data. The entire board resigned this September after the founder and CEO said that she was considering a third-party takeover proposals. So obviously, users are worried about what might happen to their data. How are you feeling about knowing that your data might be out there?
Well, I mean, there's really nothing I can do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, other than join the class action lawsuit. I'd say back in the day, 23andMe had so much promise for what they were trying to do, and just stopped innovating. Like, I don't know, like it became all the rage to kind of give away these kits. I know we covered them in a lot of like trend forecasting and different sessions, and they were truly, truly onto something. And it's like you only went like halfway there, right? It's like it's a diagnostic tool, but then just kind of forgot about the other half, which is like, well, how do I move forward? What else can I be doing? And I don't know, just it kind of lost its way.
It kind of feels like they could have had so many like integrations with certain products that are out there, with trackers, with like, partnering with some of the other tech companies that are also collecting data to help you better understand fully, like not only your health, but your habits and things like that. So yeah, I think that it's disappointing, kind of that they're, who knows what's going to end up with a company, and also who knows what's going to end up with where the data is going to go. So,
Right. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to scare you, but
no, I mean, like I said, there's nothing really I can do, but I mean, it's just a case of a extremely promising company who could be doing a lot more.
Last up, there was an article in 404 Media where they wrote about a person who claimed to have used a free AI tool called AI Hawk to apply for 17 jobs an hour. And they only stopped when they reached 2,843 jobs. So the tool automatically entered the person's bio, generated resumes, wrote customized cover letters, and checked all like the necessary boxes before filling out the paperwork on their behalf. It's just such an interesting thing because there's, people are worried. Like the job market right now is really weird. And it seems like, and it's part of it maybe because of AI, but it's interesting somewhat that, someone is kind of taking AI, using AI kind of in the opposite way to be able to help them, find the job that would be right for them.
Yeah. Well, I think it illustrates a couple things that maybe have been happening over the last few years. And I feel like the resume died years ago as a form of, trying to explain like, here's all my skills and experience and, how I solve problems and why I'd be a good fit. It was just it's an antiquated tool to illustrate that, I think.
It is, but like people are still like, there's still companies requiring that stuff. For what reason? I don't know, because you can just look on LinkedIn, but it's just kind of this thing that people are still, I don't know, they're still requiring it. I think because we're in the tech industry and kind of we can kind of see the future of where things can go and what we can do with data. But I feel like it's not as antiquated for a lot of companies. They're still requiring resumes and cover letters and all these extra kind of like forms and things when people are filling out, these, trying to get a job.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's, I would say like it's the best we have today in order to illustrate, all of your different experience and what you might do there. And I think in the near future, so even as we were talking about, fundraising and the current process you go through for fundraising, you essentially are putting together a data room that holds all of your, P&L and all different kinds of things about your company. But you're not there. You're not there to explain them. You're not there to talk about them. You're not, they can't ask any questions. They have questions in their head. And it's all these different assumptions you make from data points is the same exact thing that happens with resumes, right? It's a bunch of bullet points. It's a piece of information, but truly you don't really understand how the person thinks, personality, behavior, all these different kinds of things, which are much more important, in my opinion, when you're building something. And so I would much rather have someone send their like AI, ahead of time, and I can ask questions. It can spit out, accomplishments and all these different kinds of things. But then I'd want to dig into how might you like solve this problem? What kinds of here's the things I'm thinking about. It's all the questions you want to ask in an interview, but you can't ask real people. I think those would be interesting ways that the resume could kind of go through a pretty disruptive reinvention over this time. Even finding like fit, right? I want to put my hat in the ring, and then I want the AI to determine like, here's the company you should be based off of everything they said they want and what you're amazing at. Like that should exist.
Oh, absolutely. But I'd say until then, the system's broken. I mean, it doesn't work. And, there's still these systems that are set up they have like these, platforms within organizations that are set up in a certain way. And what I think that's interesting about the story is this guy's like hacking it. He's just like, all right, like it's really hard to get a job and I can now use AI to my benefit to help me get in the door because I feel like that's the hardest part.
But did he actually get in the door?
It's a good question.
Like I'm curious.
I don't know. That's a follow-up article, I think. I don't know if he actually got a job. That's a good question. All right, let's get to our interview with Kate Marchio, expert in how AI is impacting the medtech industry. She's focused on medical devices, diagnostics, women's health, digital therapeutics, and surgical robotics. You ready?
Let's go.
Hey, Kate, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to see you, Sarah.
You too. Yeah, we have a past at Smart Design. We used to work together in San Francisco, so it's really nice to have a conversation again.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's a blast from the past for sure.
Kate, where are you now?
So now I'm with a company. It's called Syngenta Innovation. So I've been working in innovation and product design my whole career. This company in particular is based in Cambridge in the UK. So strictly focused on medical innovation. We do a lot where we're converging of technology, science, AI into really novel solutions. So it's exciting to be part of that company, but really it's been a long journey working innovation. Like Sarah mentioned, that's how we know each other as well. And excited to be here with you guys today.
We have a lot to talk about. You're our first guest that really is in kind of the med world. So we have lots of questions. But I'd love to start with something that you're passionate about, and I also happen to be passionate about it too, is your point of view on animal testing. And specifically, I know you're vegan, but using AI to think about testing alternatives when it comes to med tech. So I'd love to just kind of understand your perspective there.
And
we're
going deep right
we're
from
going
the
right
beginning.
in. We're getting deep.
We are. We're diving right in. It's a topic that I think for some people it's ethical. For many researchers, if you're a researcher in any kind of med tech, pharmaceutical, drug development, the harsh reality is animal testing is just the standard quo, and it's part of the process. And unfortunately, from an ethical standpoint, a lot of animals are suffering from that. Over 200 million animals every year are suffering from this. But take that ethical side, aside. Actually, one of the most exciting parts of this is because of AI, machine learning, and because of a lot of new technologies being developed, we're actually seeing results that are far superior than using animal biology. Because at the end of the day, animal biology will never be human biology. And so we're able to use in silico testing to essentially mimic very closely human biology. There's companies that are developing these in silico chips that basically replicate certain organs, how organs interact with other organs, and how they interact with different toxicity testing, different drugs. And the results, not only are they as accurate, but they're actually more accurate. They save time, they save cost, and at the end of the day, what I care about is they save lives. So that's just one area where AI is really starting to transform, and it's really not a matter of when this will happen or if this will happen, but matter of really when. And we're already seeing a lot of legislation and a lot of changes from the top down, but also from the bottom up of really wanting to see this change. A lot of countries are starting to ban animal testing, or at least have a projection of when they'd like to see that end. There's companies that have already stopped animal testing completely. So it's a really promising and really exciting area that we're seeing a lot of innovation.
Are there any challenges in kind of validating the AI models for regulatory approval?
So that's always the hurdle when it comes to medical innovation is getting regulatory on board, getting them to understand the benefits and also the risks, and also see that, in fact, when you look at when you do animal testing, about 90% of drugs fail when they move from animal to human. And when you think about that, that's actually a massive failure in that model. So it's already not working. It works enough because it's a standard quo we've been using. But when you start to use these models that can actually better mimic actual human biology, the results speak for themselves. And a lot of the regulatory body is starting to see that. I think it always comes down to evidence and data and being able to show a long duration of this being the case. But we are starting to see that already. And I think it is a matter of time until enough evidence is there to support that.
So could you walk through, Kate, just for our listeners, kind of the traditional current state of how you might develop a drug and test it, and then what some of the new proposals look like. So just to kind of get a full sense, because this is your world, you're in here every day. But if I was, at a company that was, we're trying to develop a new drug and we want to take it to market, what's that total life cycle look like, and the steps involved?
So I'm more on the med device side, but on the drug discovery side, it's a really long process, 10 years or more. And during that process, a lot of it is these studies. Obviously you don't want to put anything out there that's going to end up creating harm or harming people. And there's been cases of that happening. So obviously you want to do a lot of upfront testing. A lot of that does include animal testing. So if there's a way not only to shorten that duration, which I think a lot of companies would be very motivated by, the cost of it, so even just the cost of putting together an animal study. In fact, another area that I think that's really interesting that this can address is when you have very kind of unique genetic conditions where it affects very few people, and it's more on the edges. A lot of times there isn't research that's put into this. There's not enough of a population to really justify the cost of taking a drug all the way through to address this. But in these kind of in situ and in silico testing, you can actually target really rare genetic disorders and rare conditions that up till now we've really had to ignore because of those reasons. So I think the promise of not only more accuracy, but more reliable, more cost effective, and increasing the speed to market is huge. And I think this will motivate a lot of companies.
I guess the new approach, like with the chips, like are these physical chips? Like are you testing on, it's like a physical object in front of you or a material, or are we talking about purely computer programs that it's running the data through?
Yeah, kind of both. It's there's many companies developing these technologies. One company is developing what's called organ on a chip technologies. There's other things like digital twins, kind of silicon trials, and basically you take this organ on a chip, and you add different biological cells to it. They have different chips for different organs. For example, I think the liver chip is the most common one. They also leverage their platform and their technology to other companies that can use that. So it's kind of a mixture of using a silicon chip and using biological cells. I'm not a scientist, nor do I claim to be, but essentially what you're doing is you're able to use different AI machine learning algorithms to basically predict how these different chemical compounds might interact with these different biological targets that you're putting onto the chip. So AI is a huge part of it, and really enabling us to simulate that biology at a cellular and also at an organ level. So essentially, they're kind of virtual models, but also physical models as well.
Kate, I'd love to talk about, like when people are sick and, with the traditional care system, that's generally when they get care is like once you're sick. I'd love to talk about your thoughts around kind of moving from sick care to preventative healthcare and how AI can play a part in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the holy grail and really where the industry is going, as you guys know, AI is affecting every aspect of our world. And healthcare, I think, will have a huge transformation. Kind of the initial areas that we're seeing AI is really in radiology and diagnostics. And that's really because in radiology, you have hundreds of thousands of millions of these images that have been created over the years that are very highly annotated, which is an important aspect of it. So AI can take that and learn from it, and really understand where certain correlations and it can start to see things that we cannot see with our human eyes, the radiologist cannot see. So say you take a scan, say you're taking a scan for breast cancer. Right now, we're at the level where once we start to see a tumor, we can detect it. It has to be something we can physically see with our eyes. AI will get to the point where it's been trained so much it can start to see it earlier and earlier and earlier, to the point where it starts to recognize when cells are starting to change before it becomes a tumor. And essentially, the promise of AI is that so now we have been able to detect something before it even becomes anything really of concern. With personalized medicine, AI is being used to develop personalized therapeutics that can then go in and attack those cells before they become something. So that's just one example, but really and this would have to shift an entire business model of a huge industry. But that is what AI is probably going to do in a lot of cases. And it may take a little more time just because of the highly regulated nature. But essentially, because of AI, we are starting to see we're not only able to predict disease and cancer and certain things before they become something we're treating, because right now we wait until something's hurting. We're waiting until something is really causing an issue, and then we go to the doctor. Mm-hmm. But if we're able to treat things very, very early on and more preventatively, it really shifts the whole care model, and and essentially democratizing our data in a way. Like, I guess when you look at how AI is being used right now, it's very against all HIPAA rules, HIPAA violations. If a doctor is going to enter all of your data into ChatGPT to figure out what it's going to do, right? So, did you hear about the mom who had basically turned to ChatGPT to help diagnose her son? Yeah. So yeah, that was a really interesting story where she had, 3 or 4-year-old son had gone to many different doctors. He wasn't walking right. He couldn't cross his legs. He was dragging one of his legs. He's clearly having some major neurological issue. She took him to a lot of specialists. After 20 visits or so, she couldn't figure out what this was. So she took all his data. She had all of the notes. She had all the MRIs, the CT scans. She had everything. So she entered all of that into ChatGPT. It came back and said, we think it's this spinal condition. Turns out she goes to another specialist. She tells him what it's shared with her, and turns out he does another scan and sees, yes, you're right, it is a problem with the spine. And that's a very exciting story and a promising story, but doctors cannot do that yet. That's an extreme violation of HIPAA for them to do that. But she has that data. She owns it. She's the guardian of her child, so she could do what she wants with that. So in a lot of cases, because all of this, basically all of the power of AI is in our hands as well, not just the medical companies, not just doctors. Have you guys read the Co-Intelligence book?
No.
No.
There's an interesting book. It's called Co-Intelligence. It's about AI. And one of the things it says is, and I really like the point he makes about right now, AI that all these companies have, say Medtronics of the world, J&J's of the world, is no more powerful than the AI that you and I have right now in our pocket. And it's really democratizing the use of this and the ability to leverage it. And the healthcare system, quite frankly, is going to be have their hands tied a bit with the data that they're able to use. And you could say, well, can't you just anonymize the data? But really, the value in the data is the correlations across all of your healthcare, all of your records, everything else that's going on, and everything else about you. And that's really where you as an individual who owns that data might have more power to use it, and therefore start to have more control, more understanding of your own health than we do now. Because right now it's kind of like a little bit of a black box in terms of our own health, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know when your car's running low on oil, right? You know when it's running low on gas, but you have no idea when your body needs something until it's broken down on the side of the road, so to speak.
No, I mean, we were talking in the kind of like in the news on the way to this interview about 23andMe, right? And they kind of like set I don't know, like a little bit of a vision of, oh, now I can have more control or just see like what's going on inside of my body. But then there was never any follow up to how do I change it, affect it, how does it become part of me? And as I'm hearing you talk, like just seeing different startups along that whole journey of like creating your, essentially your digital twin of yourself, and then what are all of the different like inputs you can put into it, and then all the different kinds of supplements, treatments, like all kinds of things that can keep you more dialed in.
Right. And like not everybody, so knowledge is power, right? But not everyone's going to use that knowledge. I mean, we all know that smoking is bad for you, but there's still a lot of people that smoke, right? So there's still things that we know are not good, but there are people who I think might have a history of certain cancer or certain conditions that do want to know and do want to know early. The earlier you treat anything, the better. So I think just having that knowledge, whether you use it or not, and that's a good point. Like, so what do you do with that information? And I think that's one of the things that we think about when we're working on these technologies and giving patients this kind of information is, on one hand, you want to give them information, but you also don't want them to jump to conclusions that, oh my God, I'm dying and all these things are wrong, and the whole, WebMD, now we've got ChatGPT telling you you're dying, so it's like there's a fine line between, we still need a physician involved. We still need a physician to help communicate that information. It's really easy to jump to conclusions about certain things that you're seeing, and a physician is still very much a very important piece of that puzzle, and I don't want to undervalue that at all.
Mm-hmm. But an interesting way, though, it could change care. Like when you're coming in with not only kind of your history and understanding, but how you're feeling that day or how you have been feeling, like only you know, like really how your body is feeling, on top of also all of that data and being able to kind of at least have it like be part of that. Because I feel like, I mean, I've been in the situation where you go and you see a doctor and they say all these things and you're like, I do not understand kind of what happened. But if you have more of a translation of that, you can be more part of that conversation. It would just be interesting to see how doctors feel about that. Patients becoming more part of that conversation, and having more ownership over their health.
Yeah, and they already are. I mean, every doctor experiences a patient that comes in and says, "Hey, I looked this up and it says it's this." We're already seeing that, and I think doctors have to embrace that patients are becoming more proactive in their care, and quite frankly, in our healthcare system. So my best friend is she's had a genetic disease her whole life. She was born with it, and so I've seen her go in and out of the hospital and dealing with doctors and really having to be her own advocate and having to really be the one to kind of piece together her whole health and make sure she's getting the right care. Because quite frankly, our healthcare system is still very segmented. You have neurologists, you've got ENTs, you've got gynecologists, you've got ophthalmologists, and we're seeing more and more. And I think what AI is going to really bring together more than ever is the correlations between everything. Our health is all connected, and we know this logically, but still in the healthcare practice, it's not something that's truly embraced. And we're starting to also see a lot of conditions actually start in the brain. So as we're learning more about the brain and how this works, there's a lot of things that can be kind of discovered in the brain, also in the retina. So a lot of studies are starting to be done around diseases that you can kind of detect just looking at the back of your eye. They say the eyes are the window to the soul, but they're also kind of the window into our health in a lot of ways too. And so I think these correlations will start to become connected, but that's only if AI has access to all of that data as a collection and can start to piece that together. But eventually, I think that's where we're headed.
Sounds like Warby Parker has a new business model. So with the eyes. But I mean, I think it's so encouraging that, even just kind of taking personal ownership of data that you likely already have, right? It kind of sits in your medical file. And you have technology today where you can view your chart and schedule appointments, but nothing really even comes close to feeling like it's like your advocate or your window or your, like kind of your own AI to your health. You definitely don't feel like you're in control of it. I guess, what are you seeing as some of these, I don't know, just kind of exciting spaces that could start to pop up that are empowering people? Because you're right, like you have access to tools now that are as powerful as any company, and they're affordable, right? So now, what do you do with it as an individual who wants to take control of your own health?
Yeah. Well, I think you still have to be very careful because ChatGPT, while it's tempting to, especially hearing that story, to upload all your data and see what it says, quite frankly, ChatGPT doesn't have access to a lot of the firewalled, um, all of the literature that doctors are using. It has access to Reddit, so and it's there are companies that are creating platforms that are going to be and claim to be HIPAA compliant that doctors can use, that can access those journals, scientific journals and literature that are legitimate. But I think as a person, I think when it comes to being the advocate for your health, just having more visibility, I think that's really the beginning of it. And I think that's where you still have to be careful about not including a physician. I think you should always include a physician. I think while ChatGPT is, could come up with some interesting stuff, as you guys know from generative AI in particular, it comes up with stuff sometimes. Sometimes it could be accurate 1,000 times, and then make something up completely random that 1,001st time. And the problem with that is because it's so accurate most of the time, it's easy to just assume it's right. But it also needs scrutiny, and it needs scrutiny from somebody who's gone through medical school and who understands these things. This kind of a tool should be used as a supplement, not the main thing, but it is helping turn the tables on the ability for us to just have the access, have the awareness, have the knowledge, and be able to intervene things earlier. And I think that's overall the goal,
Right.
even though that'll completely disrupt most all business models in the medical industry at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sarah touched on it. Like, you need almost like a doctor interpreter, like as a patient as well, right? Because I mean, I'll just speak for myself. Like, if they say, "Hey, these are all the things wrong with you," and you're just like scribbling down notes or on your phone trying to take notes, and like half of you's there, half of you's in your phone trying to write things, and at the end of it, you're like, "I have no idea what I'm still, So just wondering, like, that kind of the experience again, back to the patient, the individual. You kind of need some of these tools where you you may be just confused and disconnected from the whole experience, and so that's why you're not invested in it.
Yeah,
you don't
and
understand
hopefully that part changed, because I know what you mean, where the doctor's literally got one foot out the door writing something as she's like trying to get to her next appointment. And a lot of that is because doctors and physicians go into the field to work with patients, but a lot of times they end up just sitting there doing paperwork all day long. And so
Right. Hopefully
AI can help to do some of that for them, so they can spend more time with the patient and explain things, because I know exactly what you mean. They shout out all these words to you that literally you don't even know how to spell. You're trying to jot it down because you're going to go look it up later.
Right.
And it's not helpful. And so I think hopefully they'll be able to spend more time with patients to explain things, explain their options, and also to address concerns, because like our minds will always go to the worst possible outcome, right? The second you hear, oh, there's a slight chance it could be this, it's always your mind goes, so well, it's got to be that, and you start looking everything up. But yes, it's having a physician involved ultimately, like, it's key. And even though they did an experiment where ChatGPT, it went and it passed the medical bar to be a doctor easily, but that doesn't mean it's qualified to be a doctor. And so what is the difference, right? And we have to understand, it's not just reciting information, it's really understanding. Even though AI can see correlations, it's not the same as having a physician involved and their years of experience and practice that they do.
It's really cool to hear that AI can like almost help practitioner and patient be more kind of present for each other in those situations, and kind of gives those human moments, which is, it was cool. And we've had this conversation before where AI becomes that kind of, the administrator, kind of gives you those tools. So then, you and the doctor can have those deeper conversations. I want to switch to a topic around women's health, because I know that is an area of passion for you. I'd be curious about if you have examples or stories about how AI is creating more personalized and empathetic healthcare and experiences for women.
Yeah, so women's health is an area that is still very ripe for innovation, and that's one reason that I'm, not only because I'm a woman myself, but because it is an area that's still very underserved. One thing around AI that I think we have to really be careful about is, as you know, with AI, anything that's programmed into the AI came from a human. And so it's inherently going to also contain the same biases that we as humans have. And how do you program out those biases? Well, that's tricky, without creating other biases and so forth and so forth. Did you ever hear, this is several years ago, did you hear about when they created the AI bot, Twitter bot that went on Twitter. So they
I thought
created
that was Elon.
No, it was before Elon. This is when it was still Twitter. They
Sorry.
basically created, yeah, but he's one of those. But they created an AI bot, basically that created its own profile and started interacting through Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And within 24 hours, they had to shut it down because it became so mean. It was saying
I still stand by my statement.
it was saying the worst stuff. They're like, "Oh my god, we have to shut this down immediately," because honestly, it was
just learning off of Twitter. Yeah,
it was learning our behavior. It was basically seeing how us as human acts, and it was mimicking that. But it almost became a liability very quickly. So,
yeah.
But that's just an example of how it's learning from us, which are always the best examples, especially online behavior. So I say that to say that, and one of the inherent issues why women's health has been so underserved is because we live in a world that has a major bias towards men as the standard quo. And especially in medical research and studies, it's typically using white males. So even women of color, people of color, women in general, a lot of our like a lot of different conditions actually present very differently in women than they do men, and cardiovascular in particular. A heart attack will present very differently for women than they do for men, yet all the studies are done around men. So when they do a cardiogram or they do certain tests, they're looking at a woman's heart in the way they would look at a man's, and they end up missing a lot. That's just one example. But my hope, and I'm really curious how AI can help change this. Is there a way to program into AI to help fix some of those biases? And if there's not a way to help program it, at least it can differentiate between male and female results and start to find correlations that strictly address women and men separately. There's actually studies where they've seen through imaging that the AI can recognize what gender you are, in some cases, what race you are. So AI is becoming intelligent in that way. So how can we use AI and the power of it to really help us address some of those biases and start to shift that as well?
Well, do you see some of that impacting also just some of the, I guess, how we're doing testing, where, I know the results need to be anonymized and all that, but if you can be more nuanced at the end, does that open up the possibility where you can start to collect some of those nuances at the very beginning so that you can connect the dots all the way through?
In breast cancer screening, for example? Or
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the first area that we'll see this happen, and certainly the way where it's headed. Right now you have to wait until you feel a lump or you see something on a mammogram, but through there's different kinds of imaging now that are coming out that are even more higher resolution and able to kind of do repeatable scans where you can kind of overlay over time. But essentially, hopefully, the goal is to be able to get to the point where you can see it so early before the human eye can even see it and start treating it then.
I just want
and I think that's a huge part.
Yeah, I'm just curious on some of the HIPAA regulations. Like if you, as a consumer, knew that by disclosing your age, race, gender, where you live, other factors that maybe you don't hold a lot of sensitivity to, because if you were able to contribute that to kind of, I would say, like to the cause, then it helps impact some of the results you get at the end, where you can start to see all those correlations, and truly we can have AI powered by people because we're giving it more information versus just using kind of the generalities that are on the internet, which are biased because of the people who are creating the content on the internet.
Right.
Now, because we know that the results are going to be super powerful, I guess is it like back on us to start to look at what kinds of things, should be highly regulated, yes, but then could the end user say, you know what, I'm going to contribute this information because it's going to improve society or improve outcomes.
Yeah, no, it's such a good question, and it's so hard because on one hand, technology in general, the tech industry in general, has really failed us in protecting our data. And I think that's created a lot of mistrust with people and corporations and how they're using that. But quite frankly, we don't have as much control over our data as we think we do, as we wish we did. So the idea of giving up more control of that is scary to a lot of people. I think HIPAA is a very, very strict, very highly regulated piece of that. I think it would have to, like you're saying, it would have to come from us to want to share that data willingly in order to get those results. In some cases, AI is able to at least kind of in some cases anticipate what they think certain gender race is, but when it comes to those other correlations that you're talking about that might have other influences, which do have other influences because it's all connected. I think that is the the pipe dream. I think that's what we would hope we could have one day, but it does have to come from more willingly sharing that data. And when you think about who has control of that data, is it the insurance companies? Because once insurance companies have that, and you already see with insurance companies that won't insure somebody with a pre-existing condition and so forth, and that really not only is that harming someone financially, but really their life is at stake when they're not able to get insurance, especially if it's a genetic disease that they were born with. They had no choice of having when they came into this world. So there's a lot of controversy around that, and I think it would have to be done very carefully and with the right rails in place to keep it out of the wrong hands of insurance companies and so forth that might have ulterior motives with your data.
Kate, if you can talk about the current FDA stance on AI, machine learning, like based medical devices. So kind of curious, kind of where do they stand under, because you have a perspective on kind of the whole manufacturing and kind of the creation of these tools. So just kind of curious what you think.
Yeah, so they're comfortable. They're most comfortable right now where it's in imaging and diagnostics, and for those reasons I mentioned, where we have really highly annotated images that can be anonymized and can be already showing major promise. So there's areas where they're getting very comfortable with it. I think they're very open to embracing this in the right way. But quite frankly, as you guys have seen, AI is moving at light speed and is moving much faster than our regulatory bodies can move. So there's that. I think keeping up with it and being able to still keep regulations, which we need, especially in healthcare, where you don't want to rely on a doctor who's strictly going to ChatGPT to try to figure out what's wrong with you. We really need these in place to make sure we've got the right rails around it. But it's moving faster than the regulatory bodies can keep up with, and that's always a little bit scary. But we need to make sure that the right people are in the government and in these positions that understand it, and that also understand not only the potential of it, but the the risks, which I think is what they're mostly focused on. They're very risk-based, obviously, always looking for a worst-case scenario. So I think we have to always keep that in mind when it comes to, you don't ever want to diagnose someone incorrectly or misdiagnose them and miss something that could have been diagnosed earlier. And I think that's the fear. I think AI should always be used as a supplement. It should never be the primary way that you're diagnosing or understanding what to treat. And the treatment plan really needs to come from the physician. but they're already using Google. They're already using, a lot of other technologies. So, can ChatGPT just be something that's a supplement?
Yeah, I mean, you would think so. I mean, I have Meta Ray-Bans, and now with this knowledge you just put in my brain around the back of my eyes, they're like the window to my health. I just want to flip the camera around and shoot the other way into my eyes. To just start to do, just like little sensors that help detect, it just is putting you more in this like ambient space that's, kind of keeping up with how you're doing every day. Right. And because I think, the annual health check, like that's just one moment in time. And, but then we have all these other technology and tools around us that are living with us that could be doing so much more. And it's exciting. It's an exciting space that obviously is going to be ripe for innovation for everyone.
We have all these devices now, our Apple Watch, or everything that's collecting health information about us. So, yeah, how can we leverage that better, and how can that be part of a not just an annual physical, but just a bigger picture of your health in general? Because going to the doctor on one day doesn't necessarily, even a blood test on that one day only gives you a small sliver and snapshot into your overall health.
It's really interesting to think about those like experiences where going to the doctor and having those tools to be able to translate, to remind you of the things that you wanted to tell the doctor, to, just kind of to pull it all together. I just love being more like thinking about myself as more of an advocate for my health. And I think that, what you're talking about with the internet of me and using all of the data that I am collecting about myself and making that part of the conversation, I think is really promising and exciting for healthcare.
Yeah.
From a doctor's position, they pull up your file, they go in the room, they're kind of like scanning. They can't look over your entire medical history, especially if you have any, conditions that you've been dealing with for a long, long time. So, like, how can we use these tools to help summarize some of that and give them a better snapshot into like all of our health history and other things that we might be dealing with, not just that one thing we're there to see them for.
I mean, I want my doctor to call me.
Yeah, he should be anticipating that.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, if you're able to oversee of like, let's just say 1,000 patients, which I know is a big number, but have a team of doctors oversee, a cohort of 1,000 people, and they're contributing all of this information all the time. I don't know. Then you can like triangulate like who needs care and when and with whom, and they might not even know. Yeah, because right now it's more of like whoever raises their hand, and the hand could be raised because like you feel terrible today or something bothering you, or it's just, I signed up for my annual physical and so I feel like I have to go even though I don't maybe need to.
Right.
Just seems like there's not a better ticketing system, if you will, around who needs it and when. And so I don't know, I think there could be so many things that could happen to this entire experience that just kind of builds a completely new way to do it.
Yeah. I think there will be a different model.
Yeah, and it almost feels like instead of like just so there's like there's the doctor and there's 1,000 people. It's also thinking about the model where it's like you're at the center and all of your doctors around, and they're focused on and all connected to you. So it's not a siloed system like it is right now, where like this doctor doesn't talk to this doctor. It becomes more like once you do have that care, it becomes more holistic and personalized to your health as well.
Yeah.
Kate, where can we learn more about you and Sagentia Innovation?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn under Kate Marchio. My website is sagentiainnovation.com. So we're a team of, like I said, technologists, scientists. We're at the forefront of AI and med tech. We do a lot of work in diagnostics and surgical robotics and medical devices and really helping bring some of these forward. So yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody who wants to continue the conversation. But I think the future holds a lot of promise for, where we see the innovation heading with AI and medtech in general. And I'm excited to hear other areas of AI through your podcast as well.
Thanks so much, Kate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Just a reminder, if you listen, please subscribe and check us out on the road. It's at verve.com/AI Speakeasy Tour, and we'll have the link in the show notes. That's going to do it for this episode of AI Powered by People. This show is produced by Steve Berkowitz and brought to you by Verve. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday.
Bring it on.